Calamity Jane is a loud and adventurous woman who has left her mark in the Old West. She is a frontier woman, professional scout, and best friend of Wild Bill Hickok. She even appeared on Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show. Martha Jane Cannery was born on May 1, 1852 in Princeton, Missouri. Calamity Jane grew up to be a tough woman. She lives life on her own terms and is known for her rough and sassy personality, shooting like a true cowboy, and her storytelling skills. From an early age, Calamity Jane loved the outdoors and was a skilled equestrian. When she was 13 years old, her family immigrated from Missouri to Virginia City, Montana. On the journey, Calamity Jane spent most of her time hunting with the men in the caravan. By the time the train arrived in Virginia City, she was already considered an accomplished female sniper and a brave racer. The life of Calamity Jane was full of tragedy and hardship. Shortly after arriving in Montana, her mother died in Blackfoot in 1866. The family later moved to Salt Lake City, Utah, but it became clear that travel was not good for them, as her father also died shortly after. Having to care for her siblings, Jane took any job she could find to support the family. She worked as a chef, nurse, disco, dishwasher, waitress, trolley driver, and watcher. Her determination and resilience are admirable as she struggles to make ends meet. In 1870, Calamity Jane joined General George Armstrong Custer as a scout at Fort Russell, Wyoming. She even wears a soldier's uniform, just like the men. Together, they headed south to Arizona with a passion for Indians. Calamity Jane has overestimated herself, saying she's the most daring racer, claims to be one of the best racers in the West. Her courage and willingness to take on any challenge made her a legend of her time. In 1872, Calamity Jane was dispatched to the Indian mussel shell outbreak at Fort Sanders, Wyoming. There, she fought bravely alongside Generals George Custer, Nelson Miles, and George Crook. The campaign lasted for more than a year, finally ending in the fall of 1873. It was during this time that Martha Jane Cannery, better known as Calamity Jane, earned her infamous nickname. According to Calamity's own account, the events that led her to being known as the Calamity occurred in Goose Creek, Wyoming, where the present-day Sheridan stands. Captain Egan was in charge of the Army's post office, and they were ordered to suppress an Indian revolt. While the soldiers were returning to camp after a few days, they were attacked by a large group of Indians, and Captain Egan was the first to fall. Disaster, who was walking ahead, heard gunfire and turned around to find Egan lying on the ground. She immediately galloped back, lifted him onto her horse, and brought him safely back to the fortress. Captain Egan, after recovering from his wounds, famously nicknamed her the Calamity Jane, heroine of the plains. In 1874, Calamity was ordered to Fort Custer and then Fort Russell, remaining there until the spring of 1875. The next mission was to Black Hills of South Dakota, where troops were sent to defend settlers and miners from the Sioux Indians. They remained there until winter, when they reached Fort Laramie. The following spring, 1876, Calamity was ordered north with General Crook to join Generals Miles, Terry, and Custer at the Big Horn River. During this mission, Calamity ventured to swim across the frigid Platte River near Fort Fetterman to deliver secret dispatch from General Crook to a local outpost. However, she became seriously ill soon after and was hospitalized for 2 weeks at Fort Fetterman. After recovering from her illness, Calamity Jane rode to Fort Laramie, where she met Wild Bill Hickok. The two were instant successes, although they shared a reputation as heavy drinkers and exaggerated storytellers. While many speculate that Calamity and Hickok were romantically involved, there is little evidence to support such claims. In June 1876, Calamity joined a wagon train to Deadwood, South Dakota, where she worked as a driver of the Pony Express. She was responsible for transporting mail between Deadwood and Custer, a dangerous 50-mile journey through the Black Hills. Sadly, Calamity in Deadwood's time was cut short by the infamous shooting of Wild Bill Hickok at Nuttall and Man 66 Saloon. Jack McCall shot Hickok in the back of the head while he was holding a pair of 8s and an ace, what will forever be known as the Hand of the Dead. The next day, the entire population of Deadwood attended Hickok's funeral. Meanwhile, McCall is on trial for murder, claiming he sought revenge for Hickok's murder of his brother in Abilene, Kansas. The trial lasted less than 2 hours, and the jury unexpectedly found McCall not guilty. The local newspaper was quick to criticize the results, saying, "If we are unfortunate enough to kill a man, we can simply ask that the trial can take place at a mining camp anyway, there on these hills." Jake McCall thought he could get away with justice, but no, it caught up with him. After being arrested in Laramie, he was charged with murder and taken to Yankton, South Dakota for trial. He was found guilty and hanged for his heinous crimes in the spring of 1877. Meanwhile, Calamity Jane stayed at Deadwood, tending to the sick during a smallpox outbreak. Despite her rough appearance, she has a heart of gold and cares for those in need. The town's doctor even admits that there is a bit of an angel in this tough woman. While she may swear like a sailor, she always manages to make people laugh with her antics. At the Opera House, Calamity sat with her gun-wielding Arkansas friend Tom, enjoying a East Lynne performance by the Lard Players. But when the play ended, she became enraged and spat out a stream of tobacco juice that caught the star square's eyes and trickled down her shirt. Tom began to turn off the lights, and the crowd went wild with amusement. Calamity took her friend's arm, and they made their way up the aisle, cheered by excited spectators. Unfortunately, Tom was killed in a bank robbery the next day, and Jane never saw him again. Despite the loss of her friend, Calamity continues to live her life on her own terms, always ready for whatever adventure lies ahead. In 1882, she went to Miles City, where she bought a large ranch on the Yellowstone River and began raising cattle. She also has a busy roadside inn that never seems to close. Even when she goes on vacation, she can't stay away for long. She briefly visited California in 1883, but soon made her way to Texas in 1884. There, she met Clinton Burke, a native Texan who would become her husband in August 1885. In 1887, Calamity gave birth to a girl, and the family left Texas in 1889 to settle in Boulder, Colorado. There, they operated a hotel until 1893 before embarking on a 3-year journey through Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, and South Dakota. During these travels, Calamity tried to sell her life story to anyone who would listen. She's famous for being able to handle horses better than most men and shoot guns like a real cowboy. Her skills eventually caught the attention of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, and she became an accomplished shooter on horseback. She has toured major cities such as Minneapolis, Chicago, St. Louis, and Kansas City, bringing the Wild West scene in which she lived to the big stage. Despite her success, Calamity struggled with alcoholism, and that led to her being fired. Disaster Jane has seen her ups and downs. By 1900, she had hit rock bottom and was living in a rundown house. But fate had other plans for her when a newspaper editor found her and helped her back. The following year, she landed a well-paying job at the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. But again, her alcoholism plagued her. She caused chaos in a bar, brandishing a gun and causing Irish police to dance to her tunes. Her drunken streak continued as she stumbled across the street cursing the town. She shouted loudly. After that incident, with nowhere to go, she ended up finding refuge at Madame Dora Dufran's brothel in Belforche, cooking and washing for the girls to make ends meet. But her health deteriorated rapidly. And what was to come? On the fateful day of August 1st, 1903, Calamity Jane died in a dingy hotel room in Terry near Deadwood, South Dakota. Before her death, she requested to be buried next to the legendary Wild Bill Hickok on Mount Moriah, overlooking the town of Deadwood. Her wish was granted, and she was given the largest funeral ever held for a woman in Deadwood. The casket of Calamity was carried by a man who, as a boy, had been nursed by her during an epidemic of smallpox that devastated Deadwood. It is a fitting tribute to a woman who has lived such an extraordinary life. Despite her many flaws, Calamity Jane had a heart of gold and a fierce determination to live life on her own terms. She will forever be remembered as a legend of the Wild West, a woman who could ride a horse better than most men and have great shooting skills. Her legacy lives on, inspiring future generations to live bravely and fearlessly, just as she did.
Please like and share if you find the video content interesting and useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment below so as not to miss the upcoming interesting videos. Thanks for watching.